welcome to Rotisserie Chicken, the all chicken, the all rotisserie podcast. We talk about nothing but chicken and rotisseries. Mm-hmm. Ain't that right, Unclucky?
Yeah, you pull the thigh meat, you pull the wing meat, you pull the stomach meat.
We're going to start from the head of the chicken, and then we're going to discuss each of our favorite parts of the chicken. What's your favorite part of the rotisserie chicken?
Dark meat.
Dark meat? I like the little feet. I like the little claws.
I don't discriminate.
The little tannage. That's not what this podcast is about. we are not at all rotisserie. I understand. I've explained to several people I have a podcast, and they ask me the name. And when I say rotisserie chicken, they go, "So it's like a cooking?"
The great British rotisserie chickening.
No, really, we're trying to figure it out as we go. What the podcast is.
Yeah. Did we ever tell the story about why it's called rotisserie chicken?
I figured we would wait a couple of years. And then we could break that to the audience.
Well, how about this? To entice you to stay through the entire episode, we will reveal why the podcast is called Rotisserie Chicken at the end of the episode. So stay for a little nugget.
So this is going to be, we're going to have to move quick. We got a lot of information to cover.
Boom, boom,
So
bam.
Anna, do you have any idea of what today's episode is about?
I have zero idea. I just know that I just shoved a rice cake into my mouth to sustain myself.
She goes, before I press record, she goes, "Let me finish chewing before you press record."
My breakfast is one rice cake. I'm surviving off 35 calories a day right now.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Think thin thoughts. Think thin thoughts. So today we're going to cover two of the world's most luckiest or unluckiest people, depending on how you want to view this situation.
Whoa, okay.
So first off, we're going to start with a gentleman by the name of Roy Sullivan, a.k.a. the Spark Ranger, a.k.a. the Human Lightning Rod. So Roy Sullivan was born February 7th, 1912 in Greene County, Virginia. As he grew up in 1936, he got a job working at the Shenandoah River National Park.
Okay.
As a park ranger.
Where's that?
Virginia. It was just a few miles away from where he grew up. So he basically was like, I like these woods. I think I'll work here.
I have heard the Shenandoah Valley is very pretty.
Yeah. I mean, John Denver liked it. So
would that be a pretty baby name?
Shenandoah?
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Maybe. It does kind of sound a little white trash. I'm not gonna just for some reason it reminds me of like Cheyenne, and like every Cheyenne I knew was a little anywho. The reason why young Roy Sullivan was called the Spark Ranger was he holds the world record for getting struck by lightning the most.
Dude, what's up with that guy?
At 4.
Did he eat a battery?
So we're gonna go through each line. Yeah,
did he eat a battery when he was 2?
Okay, so we're going to go through each one of his lightning strikes. There was 7, but there were 4 officially recorded for the world record. He figured he didn't have to prove the other 3 because he already broke the record with 4.
Yeah, he's like, I swear to God.
And one, he said that he didn't really mention in his 7. So initially he said the first time he ever got struck by lightning was as a child in a field cutting wheat with a scythe. With his grandfather.
It's the wheat.
And I guess the lightning struck the scythe. He said he never tried to like bring that one up because he couldn't prove it like the other one. So he figured it didn't count.
Mm-hmm. Okay, he has some legal reasoning there.
Yeah. So April 1942, he was a park ranger in a fire lookout that had no lightning rods. The fire lookout was then struck 7 to 8 times and burst into flames. He was burned.
Okay, is the point of a fire lookout to make sure there's not a fire?
To make sure there's no fire.
Well, that's a bad day on a fire lookout.
It's not a good day if the fire lookout is the fire. But at least he saw it and he reported. I mean, at least he knows where the fire is. That's the point. Is to know where the fire is, and they're pretty certain it is in the fire lookout.
It's so funny if you believe in a higher power, and that kind of thing, it's so funny to imagine the higher power being like, watch this. This dude's on this fire lookout. I'm going to give him 7 little fires immediately. Pew, pew, pew.
It's kind of like one of those things. It's just like, I don't know. What's like an ironic thing? I think being killed by a seatbelt. I think that's being set on fire in a fire lookout is like he died because he was wearing his seatbelt.
Yeah, I mean or you could say it's serendipitous because maybe that's the perfect place for a fire lookout.
Like I said, they know where it is.
What if they weren't looking out?
They weren't.
What if they were looking the complete other way? They had no idea 7 little lightning strikes.
Well, he suffered burns on his right leg, toes, and a hole exploded in his left shoe. So I guess that was his little exit wound.
Wow.
So fast forward, July 1969, he was, hold on. Yeah, so fast forward, July 1969, he was driving his truck when a lightning strike hit a tree and then arced through his windshield, knocking him unconscious and burning his eyebrows off.
Okay. Can you imagine this person's perspective in terms of just... So, none of us humans are just driving around here being like, God, I'm so scared to go to Walmart. What if lightning strikes me? I'm so scared to leave my house. What if lightning strikes me? I don't know if we can get married in that field because lightning might strike us. Like, to us, we don't ever worry about that. But this dude, every step that he takes during every minute of the day... He has to be worried that lightning will come and fuck his day up.
We'll get into that.
Can you imagine?
That's definitely something that happens.
If somebody's like, hey, you want to go to the beach in July? He's like, I don't know, dude. What's the electricity like down there?
So to get into the probability just a little bit initially, the probability of being struck by lightning over 80 years, let's say you live to be 80 years old, is 1 in 10,000.
Honestly, that's higher than I thought it would be,
That's so much higher than I thought it would be.
What's the chances of winning the lottery? Like, 1 out of, like,
it's
millions?
like 1.5 million or something like that. It's absurd. So you're way more likely to get struck by lightning than...
What if he's just, like, constantly moist? What's the,
He's just a wet dude, and that's why...
I feel like there's something with, like, the ions or electrons on his skin must be different or something. It's just, like, he's a natural conductor.
So, he could be.
I don't really know any of the science. I'm just throwing in those fancy science words.
He's got metal bones. So, fast forwarding to July 1970, he was working in his front yard where lightning struck a transformer and again arched into Roy Sullivan and seared his shoulder.
I think he just was not supposed to be alive. I think he evaded whatever his fate was when he was 4, and then the gods were like, dude.
So I will say, this is the 3rd time. And what you were referencing doesn't really happen until the 4th time. So on the 4th time, spring 1972, he was inside of a ranger station when he got struck by lightning. His hair burst into flames, and he ran to the bathroom and tried to put it out onto the sink, but he couldn't get his head under the sink, so he had to, like, wet towels and put his hair out with wet water, like wet towels. Now,
I'm digesting that information.
To your previous point, at this time, he began to think some force was out to get him.
I would think that the first go.
So this is the 4th provable time he was struck by lightning. But this is the 5th time this man has been struck by lightning, and only now he's begun to think some type of force is out to get him.
Wait a minute. Is the lightning's name Luigi Mangino? Is he the
CEO of an insurance company?
He's like the CEO of the crops, of the wheat crops, which...
He must have spit in the face of some lightning god, Odin or Thor. He's like, you know what? I don't believe in any of that bullshit. And then he spent the rest of his life being struck by lightning.
I mean, is that rizzed up though, or?
I don't think that's rizzed up. That's rizzed down for sure.
I mean, we go on a date and you're like, I've been struck by lightning 7 times. It could happen while we eat our chicken Alfredo.
So, moving forward, August 7th, 1973, he said that he outran a storm that he believed to be following him. And once he thought the storm had passed, he stepped outside and was immediately struck by like he tried to outrun a storm in his truck, and he was like, whew, I made it. And apparently as soon as he stepped out of the vehicle, he was struck by lightning. At which point his hair was on fire, and he crawled to a container of water that he kept in his truck to put his hair out.
Did he keep the container of water in the car in case
He
this
does.
happens?
He does make references to wanting to carry around a bucket of water everywhere he goes, so he can put his hair out when he gets struck by lightning.
I was just thinking about him evading the storm, and then there's that song in the background. Ain't no love in Oklahoma. And then he just like gets to where he's going.
He does say that this is one where
It's like reverse twisters.
he does say this is one where he saw the bolt hit him. I guess the other ones he just kind of like woke up, but this one he watched the lightning bolt.
Do you think this guy could get a life insurance policy?
No, there's no world that you're like someone. I mean, I don't know if Google was like around at that point, but I just don't feel like someone would Google world record. Like if you Googled him and you were an insurance company and it was like man holds world record for being struck by lightning the most, I think you would be like, nah, we're good.
I think, but I don't know. They don't ask you that on the survey. Have you ever been struck by lightning more than once?
They probably should. They probably should.
I don't know.
He apparently, working at the park, he did say that people didn't like to be around him sometimes, and he felt like people were worried to stand next to him. And he said that the director of his park saw a storm start brewing and turned to him and go, all right, I'll see you later, I guess.
I mean, would you be around that guy?
If a thunderstorm started, fuck no.
I mean, who caused 7 fires on a fire lookout?
Well, he was struck. They were struck by lightning 7 times.
I know, but
his hair's caught fire, I think, 3 times.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd put that guy in charge of making sure stuff doesn't catch on fire.
Imagine you get in his car and he's like, yeah, just move that bucket of water to the side. And you're like, what's that bucket of water for? And you're like, oh, yeah, I whenever my hair bursts in fire from getting like struck by lightning, I use it to put it out. They're like, does that happen a lot? Like way more than it should. Way more than it should. So the 6th time, he reportedly saw a cloud that he thought was following him, and he tried to outrun it. He then hurt his ankle and was struck by lightning. And guess what?
What?
His hair caught on fire.
Maybe it's something to do with his hair. Maybe you know when you have static electricity and you touch somebody and it goes, it's like that little sting. What if his hair, he just like carried tons of like static in his hair or something?
I don't know. Maybe he needed to be studied genetically.
He definitely.
I don't know if it's like an old wise tale, but I was always told as a kid that lightning likes to strike where it struck. It's like once lightning struck something, it was like lightning got like, it was like, I'm addicted to hitting that now. Like it was, if like a bell tower or something like that got struck by lightning, it usually got struck by lightning more than once, like over a time period.
It was like, she's too good to me. I can't stop seeing her.
Lightning just thirsted for this man. What if in his younger years, he didn't know it, but he dated a lightning deity and like totally just was like ghosted her. And then the lightning deity was like, oh, you think you ghosted me?
Yeah.
I'm about to ghost you.
This whole thing, it just seems very superstitious. I want to know how he died.
Oh, we'll get into it.
Okay.
So the 7th and final time was June 25th, 1977. I feel like if you haven't noticed, these are all in like June, July, April, springtime. I would just stay inside. But I guess if you're a park ranger, those are peak park ranger hours.
I'm born in June. You're born in June.
Yeah, but just don't be outside.
I can't stay inside for my birthday.
I do have
That's
a little...
against birthday.
The next story does have something to do with your birthday, so buckle up. Buckle up.
No.
So, while fisting...
While fisting.
June 25th, 1977, while fishing, he was struck in the head. And guess what?
What happened?
His hair caught on fire and he sustained burns on his back and stomach. Apparently, after being struck by lightning, a bear seized the opportunity to try to steal fish from his trout line, and he ran it off by hitting the bear with a stick.
While on fire.
Well, I think he had put out the fire at that point, hopefully. But he did remark that this was the 22nd time he had hit a bear with a stick.
That's okay. That's fishy. That's fishy. You get struck by lightning all
Well,
the
he
time?
is trout fishing.
Anyways, you get struck by lightning all the time. We're like, wow, this is a really weird phenomenon. But you get chased by a bear 22 times?
Well, he
No
didn't
way.
get chased by a bear 20. He just shoot a bear off with a stick 22 times. But you got to remember, he was a park ranger for like
All right.
70 years. So
All
that's
right.
a lot of, that's bear territory.
I guess, but this dude, I mean, I don't know.
So that was the 7th and final time. I will say there was another lightning strike in his life where his wife was struck by lightning when she was hanging clothes up in the backyard to dry.
Could you imagine they get into a fight and he's like, let's just go hang out outside for a
It's
while.
like, how about
Let's
just come stand next to me in a storm?
Why don't we just get you a little wet on the feet and put you in the field?
I will say this. The probability of being struck 7 times is apparently 1 to 10 to the 28th power, which is 1 in 10 octillion, which is like a billion.
So, okay, but if lightning likes to strike where it has struck before, I guess in theory, if it strikes a person, would that increase the risk?
What do you mean?
You said lightning likes to strike where it's strucken before.
Well, that's an old wise tale. I don't know if that's like scientifically accurate,
Okay,
but that's what people say. I will say,
It's no hypothesize.
what they say that the likelihood of him getting struck was not 1 in 10 octillion, because he spent an average of like 30 to 45 days in thunderstorms because he was a park ranger year round. So like he was out in
The
storms.
whole time he's just nervous.
He says that. He says that storms would come by and he would just be scared the whole time. He would said that as soon as a storm would happen, he would pull over and lay belly down in the front seat of his car until it passed.
Poor guy.
I know.
I think I'd keep like my hair continuously wet, or I'd put a ton of gel in it. I'd just get ahead of that problem, or we'll put a wet beanie on.
So
You gotta get ahead of the bursting in flames head.
So September 28th, 1983, at the age of 71, he was found dead by a gunshot wound to the head.
No, he killed himself.
So there is a bit
Oh my god.
there's a bit of discrepancy. Apparently, he shot himself in the head while his wife was sleeping next to him. At 3 a.m. and she didn't awake to find him till 9.
That is
There's a little, and he was shot through a pillow using a 22.
okay.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Is that the universe wants to kill you since 10 lightning strikes, and you know what gets your ass in the end? A woman.
Nothing can ruin a man's life quite like a woman. Am I right? Am I right? Are you gonna shoot me through a pillow because I get struck by lightning 9 times?
Depends on what you become the CEO of.
So the family said that they suspected murder and that the wife and him had been having a bit of a tough time. The police said the family doesn't want it to be suicide, But it looks like a pretty clear-cut case of suicide. You know, when you kill yourself, it's sleeping next to your wife in the bed with a pillow on your head, shooting through the pillow.
And she just slept soundly.
For 6 hours. You know, typical suicide.
That sucks. He got murdered.
Yeah, it seems like
That sucks.
old Roy Spark Ranger Sullivan was the only thing. God couldn't bring him down, but a woman could. And that's ultimately what the first book of the Bible's about.
Okay,
right?
what did he do to deserve it, though?
Didn't quit his job as a park ranger and move somewhere else. I feel like I'd move somewhere else and stop being a park ranger at that point.
Yeah, I think I'd be, I don't know, I'd work in like an aquarium or something. Indoor.
Well, if you like death or near death, buckle up for the world's luckiest or unluckiest man.
Okay.
So our next...
Was that guy not it?
No, it's not.
What would you label him, luckiest or unluckiest?
I would say since he ultimately was murdered by his wife, unluckiest.
Yeah.
I think if the end of the story... Now, this next story might be a little bit different.
Okay.
So the next story is about a man named Fran Selak. He is a Croatian music teacher born June 14th, 1929.
Okay.
2 days before Anna's birthday. And that's actually, Mariah, go ahead, look that up. Is that your birthday?
Yeah.
Shut up, Mariah. But Mariah's birthday is June 14th, our lovely computer assistant. So, he lived a pretty uneventful life until January 1962, when a boulder fell in front of a train he was on, and the train was derailed and fell into a frozen river.
The whole train?
The whole train.
Scary.
17 people died.
Oh.
He broke his arm and suffered from hypothermia and was apparently pulled to safety while holding on to an elderly woman by an unknown man.
Scary.
I know.
That's a nightmare.
That is a nightmare. That's a close call.
Yeah.
It's a close call. And, we all have one of those in our lives. A close call that
we?
we're, we've all, almost like got hit by something. Or
Yeah.
you were like, yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
So fast forward the next year, he was wanting to go take a plane ride from Bosnia to Croatia to visit his dying mother. And the plane was all full up. He somehow managed to convince the plane, the airline people, to let him sit and ride with the stewardess in the back of the plane. On landing, the plane malfunctioned. The engines were blown out. And the door broke open where he and one of the stewardess were sucked out. The plane crashed. 19 people died on the plane, including the pilots. The stewardess he flew out of the plane with died, and he apparently lived because he landed in a pile of hay.
So he was sucked out from the plane because of the pressure.
Yeah, so the plane was landing, the engines blew, the door malfunctioned, popping off, sucking him and the stewardess in the back out.
Dang, did he land on her?
He landed on
apparently
he landed on a haystack, and it broke his fall. If you were to guess, this was the first and only time he flew in a plane, you would be right.
Well, okay, so he got on a train.
Got on a train.
This is like a children's book.
Fran got on a train.
Fran rode a train.
He crashed a plane.
17 slain.
We should write a Fran sailor.
Fran got on a plane.
But that's unfortunate. He shouldn't be traveling, you know what I mean? What's a safe way for this man to travel? Tried to take a train. Tried to take a plane. Maybe a bus. A bus would be fine, right?
I don't know. What does Dr. Seuss say?
Well,
we gotta finish the riddle.
Well, 3 years later, in 1966, a bus skidded into a river where 4 passengers drowned, but luckily, Fran escaped with minor cuts and bruises.
So he was on the bus.
So he was on the train that was derailed into a river, a plane that crashed as it tried to land, and then he tried to take a bus, and then that bus skidded. It'd be funny if it skidded into the same river as as the train.
Trains, planes, and automobiles.
Well, apparently there was not a larger death toll for the bus. Only 4 passengers drowned and died, and Fran was able to escape with just minor cuts and bruises.
He's like, what gives, though?
Must have been tough.
He's just trying to get home. He's just trying to take a vacation after a hard week's work.
So you know what? Maybe he saved up a little money, and he was like, I'll buy myself a car, and I'll drive my car, and that'll be it. No plane, no train, no bus.
That's a mistake.
I'll just take my life in my own hands. Right? That seems like a good plan.
That's a mistake.
Well, in 1970, his car caught fire while driving, and he nearly escaped before it exploded.
Did he have a bucket of water in his hand?
He should have had a bucket. He was like, imagine if he was best friends with Roy, and he was just like, Roy, you wouldn't believe what just happened to me.
Or he's like, I got the perfect trick. You just gotta dump the water out on your head immediately.
Well, that's crazy. All this is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I would be I would be so agoraphobic if I were any of those people. I would just be like, I gotta stay in my house. I can't freaking leave.
I mean,
I would like Benjamin Franklin the shit out of the sides, like all the
with
like
a little kite
poles,
with a key. Have a little kite with a key everywhere you went, so you would be fine.
Yes, I'd be so paranoid. I don't even know if you could call it paranoid because it's actually happening, but
yeah, it's not paranoia at that point.
Yeah, cautious.
Well, 3 years later, 1973, a malfunctioning oil pump in his car caused flames to shoot out of the air vent. And you guessed it, singeing all the hair off of his head. That's a wild one. Like, I understand, okay, trains crash, planes crash, buses crash, cars explode. But your oil pump malfunctions, catches fire, and turns your air conditioner into a flamethrower while you're in it.
It sounds satanic.
It sounds like he was in Final Destination.
Yeah, it does.
It's just...
his whole life is...
he was in Final Destination. There's no way around it.
His whole life was just Next Destination because it was never final.
Death was like, dude, I got these 2 dudes who just cannot get old.
It's just the never making it to your destination.
Well, I mean, I don't know what to do here, but so let's say, okay, again, we tried to take a train. Let's not take a train. We tried to take a plane. Let's not take a plane.
Green eggs and ham.
We tried to take a bus. Let's not take a bus. We tried to take our car. Let's not take a car.
Rollerblades.
Yeah, let's walk. Let's walk. You know,
his leg snapping at?
Let's walk. Well, in 1995, he was struck by a bus while walking down the street and sustained minor injuries. So just stay inside, I guess. Just stay inside. There's no horse-related incidences on this list, though.
The horse just explodes.
Or are there?
Well, what is that? It?
Or are there? Nope, we got a couple more. We got a couple
for
more.
this guy?
Yeah. Well, we got a couple more. So in 1996, he avoided a head-on collision with a United Nations truck and struck a guardrail on a mountain road. He was at the time not wearing a seatbelt and was flung from the car into a tree. And as he clung to the tree, he watched his car fall off the cliff ravine 300 feet.
Okay. Hearing that this guy didn't wear a seatbelt after...
Maybe he's asking to die. Maybe he's like, can you take me instead of toy with me?
But the thought that after all of that, this dude would not wear a seatbelt in his car, like, if anybody should wear a seatbelt, it should be that guy. You know what I mean?
He should wear 2 seatbelts. But if he had, he would have fallen to his death in that car.
I mean, true. So then that brings us back. Is he the luckiest or unluckiest person?
Well,
Riddle me that.
Let's say this. 2 days after his 73rd birthday, which would be, do some math, 2 days after Mariah's birthday is...
My birthday.
June 16th, Anna's birthday.
Ooh.
He won the lottery.
Wait.
He won 900,000 euros, which is equal to $1.1 million.
Nice.
Yeah.
In what year? 19...
So he was 73rd birthday, and he was born, I think, 1939 or 1929. What's the math on that, Mariah?
1992.
2002.
2002. So
you were 11.
I was 10. Wait, I can't do math.
You were 11.
I was 11. So in 2002, it was probably more than like 1.1.
It was definitely more than it is now. Let's just say it was a
fat sack.
More than it was now. It was plenty enough for him to marry his 5th wife.
Compensatory damages.
He then married his 5th wife.
God damn, what's wrong with this dude?
Well, I mean,
she's probably just like, I can't travel in an automobile with you anymore.
Yeah, I feel like that's what each wife. Maybe he was just like, here's the thing. I've escaped death so many times, just like my boy Roy. But the only thing that was able to bring him down was his crazy wife that murdered him in his sleep. That's why I like to keep him on a...
The wife wakes up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and she just sees him like...
He's like,
he's got that one eye on her.
It's about time to move on. But he married his 5th wife and then settled down. He bought, I think, 2 houses and a boat. And eventually...
The boat's a bad idea.
Eventually, he gave away most of all of his money.
Nice.
And said the only thing he needed in his life was his sweet wife, Caroline. Mm. And he then eventually died of natural causes at the age of 87.
That's sweet.
He was in a Doritos commercial.
He was.
He was in, you can look up the Fran Selleck Doritos commercial where they reenact all of his near-death experiences. And he talked about, there was a sweepstake called the Mega What Doritos sweepstake. And he said, as the luckiest man in the world, he doesn't need any luck to win the sweepstake because the odds were in his favor.
So what was the moral of that commercial? It was like, if you're lucky enough to survive all of these accidents, get yourself a fresh bag of some zesty ranch Doritos to like celebrate life. So
here on the Rotisserie Chicken Podcast, we
RCP.
We like to live in vague half-truths. You know, we're almost sometimes completely correct or not.
No.
But
not me.
So with our first story, Roy Sullivan, 4 out of those 7 were 100% confirmed strikes by the Guinness Book of World Records, and that all 7 were confirmed by the Park Ranger Services. And that first one, he specifically didn't include because he said there was no way to prove it. Now with Fran, there is no evidence to support any of Fran's claims except for he did win the lottery. Everything else is just
nobody was nobody.
There's no historical evidence to back.
Well, there were other
survivors. No one could ever find any of them.
That is suspicious.
No one could ever find any of them or find any record of any of these accidents.
There would be, but that's really suspicious because there would be newspaper articles about a train that hit a frozen river.
Yeah, and some people would suspect it's like, okay, maybe Croatia in the 60s and 70s wasn't the most like up on their technology and stuff like that. Maybe it went on look, but
there would be records. Somebody's grandma in a village would be
there were train wrecks and plane crashes that were reported in those years, but it was not the ones that he was involved in.
Suspicious.
It is suspicious, but the stories nonetheless are fun.
Yeah, I mean, fun in a tragic, scary kind of way.
I mean, yeah, but unlike Roy, who met a sad and unfortunate demise, Fran lived to be, what was it, 87 with the love of his life, well, the fifth love of his life, and $1 million.
Do you think, okay, this is going to sound judgmental, but
All right.
do you think, you know, the people who get married 4 or 5 times, you know?
Yeah.
You think that maybe after like the 3rd time, you'd
You
be
just
like,
stop.
I'll date, I'm just not going to marry. You think?
I think, I
Like,
mean,
I'm always like, why?
I think that's, I think some people definitely do that. I will say this. This is something that I want out there on the record because people say this all the time. But the divorce rate in the United States is like 50%.
I thought it was higher. I thought it was like 60. Ask Mariah to look it up.
Mariah, look up the divorce rate in the United States. Okay, so it's 60 to 70%.
Dang, that's high.
But I looked into it a little bit.
Why?
I looked into it a little bit.
Before decision making.
No, just because I have ADHD and I get hyper fixated on stuff. And it turns out if you take out divorces for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th marriages, the divorce rate in the United States is only like 40%. It's these serial
the people are messing up all the
divorcees.
statistics.
Yeah, there's people out there. A large chunk of divorcees make up most of because they just keep getting divorced. Like my dad, who's been married 3 times, are skewing the results for people who've only been married once and only had either one divorce or never got divorced.
Well, I just don't understand. If you're on your 4th or like 4th serious relationship, just don't marry that person. Like, what? Like, I just don't understand.
Well, I think
the need for marriage.
I think from the guy's perspective, they start dating girls and the girls are like, we got to get married. And he's like, been there, done that. And girls have a tendency to kind of pressure the whole marriage thing. And so he's like, all right, let's see how this will work out. And then the girl probably figures out that there's a reason why he's been married 3 or 4 times.
But the 4th time?
Me personally, if it was like the 3rd time and some girl was trying to pressure me to marry her, I would be like, listen, I know how this goes. We're gonna get divorced.
I don't know. I just feel like if I got divorced, it would be really hard for me to get.
What's the world record?
It would be hard for me to get. I don't know. How many times has J-Lo been married?
4.
Are you sure?
Didn't she marry one of them twice?
There was that singer. There was that Chris backup dancer.
Mm-hmm.
There was Mark Anthony. She didn't marry A-Rod. She didn't marry A-Rod. They were engaged. There was Ben. Maybe 3.
Okay, she's been married 4 times and engaged 7. So, at what point do you realize that it's you?
So, okay.
You know what I mean? At what point do you start to be like, maybe it's not them?
I want to say, this sounds really judgmental. It's a miracle that I have never been married or have had a successful relationship. Miracle.
Yeah.
So
we've never had a successful relationship. Miracle.
What I'm saying is that you and I have right now, God forbid, I just don't know. We'll see what happens.
Just as long as you don't shoot me through a pillow, I think I'll consider it a success.
I can't guarantee that. I told you it depends on what you become the CEO of. If it's big wheat, you got something coming.
Well, I feel like if I was ever a CEO, I would definitely be like the Arizona iced tea CEO, where he's just like, it's 99 cents till the day I die.
Too much sugar.
I've made plenty of money. Yeah, but you don't have to drink it. It's not like but I'm just saying that he's not price gouging these folks.
He's not.
I think he was like, I gotta raise the prices, and he raised it to like $1.09. He was like, the market's bad out here for us.
How crazy would it be if somebody just shot him in the middle of the
He's
street?
like, this son of a bitch. You got anything?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty crazy and wild that could happen to those people.
Oh, we were looking up the world record for marriages.
Yeah.
Let's see. World. I bet it's a woman. What do you think? Man or woman?
Man.
Oh. I just feel like a woman could convince somebody to marry them way more times than a man could. All right. It's a man.
Yeah,
Apparently, Glenn Scotty Wolf holds the Guinness World Record for the most monogamous marriages, marrying 29 to 31 times between 1926 and 1977.
Scotty.
I know.
Scotty, buddy. I hope he had a prenup in every single one of them.
No, I guess there is another record of Warren Steed Jeffs, the former president of the Fundamental Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Of course.
Had between 50 and 80 wives.
Yikes.
When he was arrested. So for monogamous, Scotty's our guy.
Scotty, what are you thinking? Scotty, get another hobby, my guy.
Oh, this is even funnier. Scotty's ex, Linda Essex Wolf, holds the record for the most marriages for a woman with 23 husbands. So, what do you think that marriage was like? Where you're like, well, maybe this will work. You've been married 22 times. I've been married 27 to 30 times. This is destiny.
I just would not feel special. I want to feel special.
Yeah. Do you feel special now that you've been proposed to?
Yeah, right now, but I'm the first. Right? No, shit.
You said you're the first, which implies the second.
I'm not the first, though.
The first. Oh, you're not the first proposed to. Yes.
Ew.
Yes.
Well, now that I think about it that way, Jacob.
You're going to call it quits. You're the first to get a venue booked.
Yeah.
The other one didn't make it out of the planning stages. Actually, the other one didn't even fucking make it into the planning stages. My first proposal was all proposal, no wedding. So
I guess I've made it thus far.
Also, your ring is substantially more expensive than hers. I never got that one
R.I.P.
back. By the way, you know who you are. If you ever end up listening to this, or your mother, where's my ring? I know I kind of sucked, but I still feel like I should have gotten the ring back.
Yeah, catch me outside.
But, yeah, that's on me.
All right, we can be done making threats on the internet.
No, we're not. Who are we threatening now? Blue Cross Blue Shield CEO?
No. You know, somebody tried to do that.
I know they did.
And it was really dumb. They made a threatening phone call.
She got arrested.
And I saw this news headline and it was like, Luigi copycat gets arrested. She was not a copycat, dude. She picked up the phone.
Yeah.
Made a call. Like a dummy.
All that stuff gets like higher. Whenever something happens like that, just like even pretending goes like through the roof, and they just throw the book at you.
Yeah, of course, because they don't want people to die.
They don't want anybody to think anything's going on there. Well, Luigi, I hope you get that TV in your cell.
Who's the CEO of Big Gluten?
I don't think there is a Big Gluten. What would you call Big Gluten? Panera?
Who is the CEO of Wheat? Mike Spire will become...
Don't say his name on this. We'll beep it. I think I'm going to beep it.
Will become the next president and CEO of U.S. Wheat Associates.
We don't want...
He's on July 1st, 2025. And just a reminder, I have celiac. It's a severe gluten allergy. It's an autoimmune disorder.
It's not Mike's fault. Mike didn't do anything.
It is Mike Spire's fault.
Mike didn't put anything in the gluten that made her this way. He's not even in charge yet, and Anna's already making unwarranted threats.
Chandler Gould is the CEO of the National Associate of Wheat Growers.
Of course, with a name like Gould.
He's the executive director of the National Wheat Foundation.
How many podcasts do you think are out there on the internet calling CEOs right now out by name? And how many do you think are such irrelevant careers as big wheat like ours. Everybody else is like calling out insurance and like weapons manufacturers, and Anna's like gluten would come in for you.
Well, listen, if we did like a prohibition, but it was for gluten, or we just made gluten illegal in the United States.
We put like extra chemicals in the gluten, so like the industrial gluten. I don't know what industrial gluten's used for, but I'm sure there's something that it's used for. It's like people are eating the industrial gluten. All right, I think that's all we got for today. Come back next week when we cover something else. What do you think?
Big